I'll be right down.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to mute everybody's microphone, and we're going to get started. Everybody except Bo. All right. Okay, here we go. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Pet Business Opportunity webinar. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. I think you'll find it time well spent. My name is Gene Seller. I'm the publisher of Pet Business Opportunity, which is a website devoted to helping you start or grow your pet-related business. We feature webinars like this, as well as other premium content that you won't find anywhere else. I'm also the president of SamsonMedia.net. We're an internet marketing company based in Montclair, New Jersey, and we build websites and other types of internet marketing services. In a few minutes, we'll be treated to an informative presentation from Bo Nelson. He's the president of WholesalePet.com. Bo started WholesalePet.com in 2001 as an online buying service for independent pet product retailers, and now represents over 300 small to mid-sized pet manufacturers. Bo's experience with WholesalePet.com gives him unique insight and perspective on what makes a successful pet product company. So we'll be hearing from him shortly. So before we hear from Bo, I just want to give you the lay of the land about how this webinar works and point out some of the features. To cut down on the background noise, I will be muting everyone during the presentation except Bo, of course. But if you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat window. And as the moderator, I'll work it into the presentation or save it for the Q&A at the end. Bo is totally fine with answering questions during the presentation. So please just type them into the chat box as they come up, as your questions come up, and we will get to all of them, okay? I'll just look for a logical point to interrupt Bo and get your question asked, okay? So to test the chat capabilities now and to get to know you all a little bit better, can you please just type what city or part of the world you're from right now into the chat box on the right side of your screen there. Okay, we got some Maryland, California, of course. We have a lot of people from California. So this is more of a breakfast meeting than a lunch meeting. Okay, we got some New Englanders. We got Denver, Colorado. We got some Michigan, Richmond, Virginia, of course. Okay. And I got a couple more people coming in. We got Dominican Republic. Okay. They get the award for travel the furthest. That's the beauty of this. You don't have to travel at all. Okay. So great. Next, can you tell us in the chat box what aspect of the pet industry you are in? And if you're not currently in the pet business, what area of the pet industry you either used to be in or are considering getting into going forward? I know everybody fill this out online. Okay, we have some e-commerce. That's great. Got the wholesale, of course, retail, more e-commerce, manufacturing, and wholesale. Okay, these are definitely all things that Bo will be able to speak to. Okay, and yes, we will be recording and archiving this presentation of the website, so you will be able to view this at any time. It will probably be posted within 3 to 4 days after the recording. Okay, so as I mentioned before, Bo has been a pet industry entrepreneur for over 20 years, and the first 8 were with Grateful Pet, a company founded to market and sell a sauce for dry dog food under the brand name Gravy Time. So Bo knows the pet business from many different aspects. I'd like to welcome Bo to the webinar. Hi, Bo.
Hey, Gene. Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to change presenters to your screen so that you can, we will see your screen, and you can present the PowerPoint presentation from your end. And okay, we see your screen. That's great. I see some more people arriving. I just want to reiterate again, if you have questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to type them in. And as the moderator, I will be feeding them to Bo in an orderly manner. Okay, take it away, Bo. It's all yours. We see it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Gene. Hey, everybody. All right, how to launch and build a successful pet product company. First of all, Gene mentioned I might be qualified for this, or hope I'm qualified for this, because not only have I had experience building a pet product manufacturing company, but at Wholesale Pet we work with lots of small manufacturers, small to medium-sized vendors. So we've seen a lot of them start up, and some of them grow, and some of them do well, and some of them not do as well. But we've been doing it for 12 years, so I have some experience in that regard. I kind of geared this talk to talking to individual entrepreneurs, people that were just starting out in the business. I'm going to keep it very generalized. You know, every pet product company is different. They all have their different, challenges and goals they're trying to succeed. I'm not a lawyer or an accountant or a venture capitalist. Those are probably good people you would talk to if you were going to start a business. So the individual entrepreneurs, it's tougher for them to start a company. I mean, obviously, bringing a product to market, if you're an established company, it's a lot easier because you already have the distribution networks and the infrastructure and the production capabilities. So it's kind of a hard task. I'm going to switch my first screen. A formidable task. So it's difficult for individual entrepreneurs, but not impossible. It's pretty easy to start a pet product company, but it's hard to be successful. There's no barriers to entry to get in. But to turn it into a real good company, that's quite a challenge. The pet industry is also an exciting place and a fun industry to be in. There's a lot of people want to be in the industry, and people like working with pets, and pet people in the industry are generally nice. So I'm going to move on to product viability. The first question you want to ask yourself when you're coming out with a new product is this product going to work? Are people going to buy this product? And the second thing you might want to ask yourself is, how can I protect this product? Is this something I could patent or trademark? It's always good to have protection so no one else could steal your idea. You want to look at your competition. Is your product different from other products on the market? You might be able to beat someone else in price. That's difficult for a startup, but your product needs to have something that's going to appeal to consumers more so than other products on the market. Without that, you're going to have a tough go at it. A couple other questions at the beginning you need to ask is how you're going to have your product manufactured or produced. Is this something you can do yourself or need someone else to do? And as you look at your business as a whole, is this something that I can build and grow, expand the line, etc.? Business plan. The business plan is very important. It's crucial if you're going to try to raise money for your business. If you're going to go to venture capitalist or anyone to attract money, they're going to want to see a detailed business plan. But even if you don't need to do that or don't want to do that, having a business plan is a good idea. You want to put all your ideas down on paper, how you expect, with pro formas and how you expect your company to go and build. And the more you brain dump onto paper, I think the better off you're going to be. Your business plan, of course, is going to be flexible as you get into starting up the business. You're going to run into obstacles and have to do things different ways, and you might want to add and keep your business plan as kind of a working tool sheet for you. And but as I say, the business plan is good. It's kind of the glue that holds all your ideas together. So if you keep a business plan, and it's also nice to go back and look at your business plan years down the road and say, hey, I did things this way, but my business plan, I kind of planned to do it another way, but this is the way I ended up doing it.
Hey, Bo?
Yes, sir.
I was going to say also, just in terms of business plans, isn't it true also that a business plan is really, it's like a living, breathing document that you'll always keep modifying and kind of going back to, right?
That absolutely, and whether you put it down on paper, I mean, you obviously have a business plan in your head, whether you're putting it down on paper, but having it down on paper, or of course on the computer, is a good idea. If you ever want to, if you ever look to to sell your business, the initial business plan is still important because you can see how you followed kind of your pathway to success. All right, so let's talk a little bit about fun.
Good.
You good? All right, funding your business. Of course, you can't start any business without money. And different businesses could take different amount of capital to start. So, funding is something you want to address early on. A couple of different ways I wrote down here to fund a business. One would be personal funds, whether if you had savings or if you had a trust fund account or, a sugar daddy or something like that. That made the best way to do it. You have complete ownership of the company. You could also look to friends and family investors. These are people who would like to see your business succeed. They might want an equity stake, but that's another way to go, kind of the easiest route. Bank or institutional loans. As most people know, it's hard for most banks aren't going to loan against a business plan, especially for a small entrepreneur starting up. That's a very difficult route unless you're going to secure that loan with collateral, like the mortgage on your house or something. You could go the venture capital route. Venture capitalists, depending on what scale you're talking about building, it's a challenge to get venture capital. The markets have lightened up a little bit with venture capital, but it's still a tough road. You have to have all your I's dotted and T's crossed to get into the venture capital arena. And most venture capitalists aren't looking to invest, $10 or $20 or $50,000. Most of them are looking to invest, $500,000 plus. So your business plan and their belief in you would have to be, you'd have to show a good return on investment for them. With venture capital, you're also probably going to give up equity in your company. Another option would be licensing or pre-launch partnership or acquisition. This kind of goes back to if you could protect your idea with a patent or trademark, then you might have an opportunity to go to an established company with an idea and have them either acquire your company or license your idea. All right, I'll move on to production. Of course, you can't start a company without having anything to sell. So if we're talking about starting a pet product manufacturing company here, of course you have to have product and have to have it made. And you might be able to make samples at home, but you can't. Very few people have any businesses that they run out of their house where they're making a product. It's just very difficult to do. The way most people go is they use contract manufacturing. So they find a third-party company to produce the goods for them. And these companies can be domestic or overseas, depending on what you're making. There's advantages to doing it either way. You have to look at quality control, where you're getting your raw materials from, but there's lots of options out there. And production is not just the product itself, but you also look at the packaging and the raw materials. If you're making like a dog food treat, you have to source where you're going to buy all the raw materials from. Even if you're using a third-party manufacturer, sometimes they would want you to get the raw materials for them. Warehousing and fulfillment, of course, you need a place to store your goods and to ship them out to customers and the business mechanisms to make that happen. Sometimes you might be able to find a contract manufacturer who can help you with that regard too. They might charge you what they call a drayage fee to warehouse your merchandise, and then they might assist you with shipping out individual orders or distributor orders, and they probably charge for that as well. So next slide is determining your target market and choosing the right distribution channels. Test marketing, this is as simple as test marketing the product with your friends and neighbors. You might want to take it to local stores in your area on a consignment basis. More advanced test marketing would be if you got an advertising or PR firm and they would organize a focus group for you. The test marketing period is a good time to make adjustments to the product and packaging, depending on consumer preferences. Now we'll talk about distribution channels. You have several different options here. The first one I have listed is direct to consumer. This kind of goes along a little bit with test marketing because the consumers are going to give you a lot of feedback on your product. You could use your website to sell directly to the consumers, or third-party websites like Amazon, eBay, or Etsy. There's also opportunities. Companies like Fab.com or QVC or HSN you can't just put a product on there without being invited, but if you want to sell, if that's one of the channels you're choosing to sell direct to consumers, you could approach those companies. You could also have something like an infomercial done that would sell it directly to consumers. You might want to look at independent stores. The latest figures I've heard, there's probably about 7,000 independently owned pet stores in the United States. There's a number of other independently owned stores that also sell pet products that aren't in that 7,000, like veterinarians, groomers, doggy daycares, stuff like that. One of the advantages of selling through the independent channel is that the store owners or store employees can be advocates for your product, so they can help sell your product to the consumer. If you sell to a bigger chain store like a PetSmart or Target, the product gets on the shelf, and if you're not doing any direct-to-consumer advertising, that product has to move off the shelf for you. Large specialty chains, that would be like PetSmart, Petco, or maybe a smaller tier of pet specialty stores like Pet Supermarket or Pet Food Express out in the West Coast. Just so everyone knows, they refer to pet specialty as any store that's selling nothing but pet products or products related to pets. Grocery and mass market would be another opportunity. And you want to basically look at your product and say, hey, does this product fit better in the independent channel, or does this fit better into the grocery channel? And it's pretty obvious how you can make those calls, or someone who's going to advise you on that. Grocery and mass market, of course, is the biggest audience out there, but it's more difficult to get your product in there, especially for a startup. Another option would be catalogs and e-commerce. Places like wag.com is a big pet-related website. In the Company of Dogs is a real popular catalog, and then there's a company like Pet Edge, which would be they do wholesale also, but they have a catalog and a nice website. All right, let's talk about tier pricing and channel conflicts. When you start a pet product company, you want to have at least 3 price tiers. You want to start with the suggested retail price, or the one way to start would be your suggested retail price. Most resellers, dealers, stores are going to want to buy the product from you for half of that price. So the example I put up there, the suggested retail price is $20. The dealers, the stores are going to want to get that for $10. If you're going to sell through a distributor, the distributor is going to want probably 30% off of the dealer cost, so up and down $7. Of course, if you're selling to a PetSmart or Petco or grocery or Walmart, they're going to want to pay the distributor price as well, so $7 for them as well. So your production costs would be $350. So you could work this backwards if you know your production cost is $350. But if you have a product that costs you $350 to make and you think it should sell for $5 to a consumer, you're kind of in trouble because you don't have enough room there to play with. In production costs, that's probably where you're going to end up, once you get into mass producing the product. So, something might cost you $5 to produce today, but once you get the quantities up and once you're doing 100,000 units a year, you may be able to get that. You can determine that you're going to be able to get that production cost down to $350 from economies of scales. So you probably want to, as you determine your product cost, it may not be your initial product cost. You certainly don't want to put your R&D in it. This is your per unit cost, probably after you can get to a scalable quantity. Let's say, if you project doing 100,000 units of this product in 5 years, that might be the product cost you want to use. And the margin that you make that's kind of up to each individual company. I mean, of course, you want to make a profit, but you also got to get to the consumer at a price they want to pay for it. Channel conflicts. What I'm talking about here is different retailers may have an issue with other different type of retailer selling the product. So if you come out with something for a pet boutique and you start selling that product to Walmart and Target, then the pet boutiques may not want to carry it because the product's also available through Walmart and Target. And if they are willing to carry it because it's available through Walmart and Target, then they certainly don't want to be able to, the individual store, the independent store wants to sell it for the same price as Walmart and Target, which is tough because the big box retailer is going to be beating you down on price to get the lowest price. You also want to look at channel conflicts. We talked about, a good way to start would be selling direct to consumer. If you're going to sell direct to consumer, you want to make sure you stick to your MSRP. Even if it only costs you $3.50 to make the product, you don't want to sell it to the consumer for $5 because then you're going to hamper your company and not be able to get into retail stores and other distribution channels, which is your real area for growth. You can only grow so much selling direct to consumer, in my opinion. There's very few products that have been home runs that have relied on the direct to consumer model. In addition to the channel conflicts, there's additional fees that might be additional fees and sales cost. You might use a sales rep. So a sales rep, their commissions typically range from about 5% to 15%. A lower sales commission, with someone that's working at 5%, they might be selling your products into bigger accounts, either distributors or chain stores, and a 15% commission percentage is typically more for your independent sales reps, people that are taking you directly to stores, directly to independent stores, because that's a kind of a harder audience to get. There's also the people are going to ask for freight allowances. You got to look at freight. The most typical for wholesaling products, the most standardized thing is the freight's added to an order. So if you're selling $100 worth of merchandise to a store, the store is probably going to expect you to charge them whatever UPS or the Postal Service or FedEx charges you to ship that product to them. When you start selling to distributors or to chain stores, they're going to ask for a freight allowance. So they're saying, okay, I want to order a pallet of merchandise, and it's going to cost me, $225 to get that pallet to me. I want $225 off that invoice. That's called a freight allowance. Another thing you might run into is slotting fees, especially at grocery. If you try to go into grocery stores, grocery chains, basically charge you what they call a slotting fee for the real estate on their shelf. So they're going to give you, two facings of your product and the pet product aisle of their store at knee level, and they're going to charge you, $50,000 just to get that shelf space. And there's no guarantee how long you're going to have that shelf space. If you're not getting an ROI for that grocery chain, you're not going to stay on that shelf space long. We'll move on to brand positioning, marketing, and advertising. I'm going to put packaging at the top here. Packaging is probably for startup companies. Packaging is one of the most important things because if you can't afford to do consumer advertising, then your product has to sell itself. It has to kind of jump off the shelf. Also with packaging, you want to think how the store is going to display it. Is this something that needs a hang tag, or do I need a display to attract attention to it? Is it a self-standing product? Is it going to be polybagged, or is it going to be clamshelled in plastic? Packaging is expensive, and packaging is it can be a lot of your product cost, believe it or not, especially if you get into treats or something. Sales materials. The most basic form of sales materials is you need price lists, order forms. These should be printable and emailable. Other sales materials would be your point of purchase displays, stuff like that, displays. Grassroots marketing. This is probably the easiest form of marketing, or the least expensive form of marketing, where you could kind of use word of mouth, use your social media outlets to promote your product. Go to local consumer pet shows. Most medium-sized towns in the U.S. have pet shows where you can attend for a nominal cost. Also, going out to local stores in your community and talking to them about your product, and probably trying to get them to carry your product. Trade shows. Trade shows are a great way to see a lot of retailers and distributors in one location. The pet industry has, I think, 3 primary trade shows. They would be the Global Pet Expo, which is held in Orlando, Florida every year. There's one called Super Zoo, which is in Las Vegas. It's in July, starting this year. And the Backer Christmas Trade Show, which is in Chicago in September of this year. So those are the big trade shows. Trade shows Typically, probably about $3,000 to get the smallest size booth, and then you have your additional costs of getting your product out there and you out there in a hotel and all that stuff. A trade show would probably cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 at a minimum to do a booth. You could use sales representatives to get your product out there. There's different types, which I mentioned before. You have your individual, traditional sales rep, which takes your product around to stores in their area and tries to show them. You also have bigger sales reps. One big one that's well known in the industry is Chuck Latham and Associates, and they would be better at presenting your products to distributors and to the chain stores, PetSmart and Petco, and grocery. Wholesale Pet, my company, we are like a traditional rep that takes your products and presents it to stores, but ours is all online, so we can cover a lot of stores at once, which is what advantaged us. The disadvantage to Wholesale Pet would be that we don't have, we can't show the actual samples to the stores on a daily basis, weekly basis. I'll move on to advertising. Advertising, of course, can get real expensive if you try to go direct to consumer. If you try to buy media on television or radio or even magazines, newspapers, whatever, anything that goes direct to the public, it's astronomical how much you can pay for advertising. Trade advertising to the trade is much more, I can't say cost effective, but much more reasonable in terms of cost. Like doing the trade shows or advertising in trade magazines is I think it's fairly reasonable. And then that's where your distribution is, getting it out to the stores and then have them resell it. Social media is becoming real big. I can't really say it's advertising as much as PR. On Facebook, I mean, there's pictures. Even if you're not in the pet industry, people are putting pictures of their dogs and cats up there and videos all day long. So if you have a company, you should obviously have a website, a Facebook page, and probably a Twitter account, and you probably want to share your commonality of love of animals with your customers. But it's a good way to communicate to customers. I'll move on to servicing customers. This is all pretty basic because it's common sense. I mean, the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. And you know when you deal with a company that has good customer service and when you deal with one that has bad customer service, and most people obviously prefer to deal with companies that have good customer service. Accessibility, that just means that you're available to your customers at a reasonable amount of time. I mean, and by that I mean you want to post a phone number on your website or on your sales materials. And probably have a good answer. If you're not there, you probably should be expected to answer the phone, at least during business hours, and it's pretty easy to roll phones over to cell phones these days. But if not, you want to have a good answer machine or voicemail and respond to that. You also want to have an email address for your company, preferably with your domain as the extension, and respond to emails promptly. And you want to be professional in everyone you're dealing with, whether it be customers or, end customers or stores that are buying from you. Your organization can have a personality too, so you don't want to be. I think it's good for organizations to have personalities. So you want to have a motto and a vision and goal for your company. And you want to relay that through all your advertising and the way you answer the phone and present yourself to customers. I'll move on to scalability, growth, and exit strategies. Growing pains. As your company grows, you're going to run into challenges. And that's kind of a good thing in a way. I mean, the worst thing that happens is your company's not growing. That's kind of the bigger challenge. But if you need to move to new facilities or change your production, there's just lots of challenges as your company grows. As Gene mentioned, your business plan is a living, breathing thing, and as you're growing, your company's going to change. I mean, very few people start companies and write a business plan and their companies follow the business plan to the T. I don't think that ever happens, because people always run into obstacles and opportunities. So there's different ways your company's going to grow and prosper and struggle, honestly. Line expansion. Everybody, and I know you might think of, you come up with a pet product and you think this is the greatest pet product in the world, and even if it is, you're going to have a tough time getting out into the marketplace because stores and distributors and chain stores, they're hesitant to buy from a company that's only selling one product. So having a line of products, so part of your business plan from the get-go, even if you can only afford to come out with one product at a time, you want to have a plan to expand that product line, and you're probably going to see opportunities as you get out there to grow your product line. But it's very important. You become much more attractive to even consumers if you have a broad product line. New markets. So we talked about the different distribution channel models kind of in the U.S. And so if you start off and you're selling to independent stores, one area of growth for you might be going to the chain stores or going through distributors or going through fab.com and doing specials. But you also want to look overseas. I mean, the United States, probably 20 years ago, we were more the leader in the consumer market than we are today. I mean, Europe is of course, always been strong, but Asia and South America, these are huge markets. And of course, there's the U.S. is the #1 consumer market right now for pet products, but I think Asia is going to be surpassing us in the next few years, and I don't think Europe is very far behind, and South America is not very far behind them. So there's lots of room for growth. This is kind of your exit strategies. I put down acquisitions and partnerships. This is probably the most common that I see in the industry. You can't just build a company and you might be able to sell it, but what we see more common is another company to buy you instead of an individual investor. There's pet product companies out there that are looking to grow their line, and if it's easier for them to acquire another company to expand their line, they're liable to do it. We've seen companies like Radio Systems or PetSafe that they bought in the last few years. They've bought Premier, they've bought Drinkwell, and a couple other companies, and Kong has acquired some companies. So the most likely scenario for you to sell your company would be to another company in the pet industry.
I say Greenies was bought too, right? Wasn't that a big one?
Yeah, that was quite a few years ago. That used to be S&M Newtek was Greenies.
Right.
And I think they were sold to ConAgra.
Mm.
But that was right about the same time that Greenies had trouble and got bad consumer press.
Right. Yeah.
And Greenies, I'm sure their sales, I mean, right after the people at S&M Newtek, they must have sold at the most opportune time because they were a market leader right about the time they sold, and Greenies has really lost market share since then. Selling your company, if you're lucky, your company, the sales growth of your company is going to be a chart that goes uphill, and then at some point it's probably going to level off. And honestly, the best time to sell a company is right before it levels off, because part of your valuation you want to get is based on the growth that you're showing and projecting. And if you are going to sell your product, if you're going to sell your company, I would suggest using a business broker. There's lots of advantages to using a business broker. They'll help you with documentation to keep everything confidential, non-disclosure agreements, and they'll help you with all aspects of the sale. Business brokers typically charge about 10% of the final price. And that is all I had. One thing I saw last night on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, he had a section called a little segment called Real Pet Products. And so I don't know if anyone in the audience is thinking about coming out with pet products, but I thought it would be kind of fun just to mention the products that he had on his show last night. The first thing he had was a big head squirrel feeder, which was like a big rubber head that you put food for squirrels in, and the squirrel would have to climb up and put its head inside the big head to eat the food. They had an anteater bug vacuum, which looked like an anteater, and I don't really know why this was a pet product, but I guess if you had ants going around your dog bowl, you would get this bug vacuum that looked like an anteater and suck up the bugs. They had a product called the Poo Leash, which attaches to a leash, but it looks like a small vacuum cleaner, and I guess the way it's supposed to work is you can just vacuum up the poo after your dog goes to the to the bathroom.
Good luck with
your dog
that.
would have to have really solid poos for that to work, in my opinion. They had something called a Clean Kitty, which was a litter box, and it kind of had like a grill grate on the top of it. And so your dog would have, your cat would make stools on that, and then it had a release mechanism that popped it out. So you would hold it up to your window and pop the poo out the window. They had, the next product he showed was an inflatable unicorn hat for cats. Jalen is a big fan of cats, so he had this, it's basically like a big unicorn cone that was inflatable that you would strap on your cat's head. I don't think many cats are going to wear that for very long. I thought this was interesting. They had a hound stool, so you could, it was like a big oversized high chair with a tray that slid on it, and you could put, if your dog doesn't like eating on the floor and he's really a family member, you pull the stool up to the table and the dog sits in the stool and you strap the tray on and the dog eats at the table with you. They had a cat go round, which was like an oversized exercise wheel for cats. It was almost like the hamster wheel, but they had the person holding the cat on the leash and the cat would walk around this wheel. They had something called a big mouth food dispenser, which was a huge dog head that you would put like a 20-pound bag of dog food in and mount it above where you fed your dog, and you open the dog's mouth and the food would drop into the bowl. I thought that was kind of interesting just because it gave a measured scoop of dog food, and some people don't like scooping the dog food. And then the last product he had was something called the Animo Pet Cam, which is like a Go Cam that fits on the dog's collar, so you could monitor by your computer or cell phone and get real-time video of what your dog's actually seeing every day.
That might be cool, like at a doggy daycare place.
Yeah, I've seen doggy daycare cams, but this one was attached to the dog.
But from the dog's perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, well, that's all I had. If anyone has any questions or comments,
I have a few.
please.
Start us off, and if anybody else has other questions, please just type them into the chat window there. So, what things do you look for that will be winners to carry in PetWholesale.com? Like, sort of, what's your short list of things that you're going to immediately say, nope, this is not for us, or this has some potential?
Well, the short list for us, a lot of our recommendations come from our current retailers, so that's a big part of it. I can almost look at the company's like branding and advertising and kind of their brand positioning to see if they're going to be a good fit. And I hate to pick on people that didn't have a lot of startup money, but if you see a company that's spent a lot of money in their packaging and kind of the way they built their website and their marketing and promotional materials, you kind of feel like their product's going to be a winner. There's a number of different factors, but that plays huge into what I think. It's almost like a sense of style.
Okay.
And with us, we're a rep, so we have to look at what products, what competing products we have on our site. We don't give exclusives for categories, but we look for leaders in categories. If we have manufacturer A on our site that makes a product, and we're going to add manufacturer B who basically makes the exact same product, if we were to add manufacturer B, the net sales for that category might be the same. So we basically siphoning sales off of manufacturer A and moving them over to manufacturer B, which might be okay for manufacturer B, but for us as a company, it doesn't do that much for us, and it kind of hurts our relationship with the manufacturer we represent.
Right. Okay.
One thing we've done at Wholesale Pet, which is I guess fairly interesting, and Gene, I've known you for a long time, so you kind of know how we work. We've over the past 5 years, we've worked more with distributors, and these aren't your traditional distributors, but they're kind of niche distributors, and they sit in one place and they only sell to the independent stores, and they UPS all the merchandise out. But now when we get a manufacturer that comes to us and they have a product which we call like a one-hit wonder, which might be a really great product, but it's not a full line of products. And by full line, I don't mean that you're covering every different category. I just mean that it's just one or two SKUs where they don't have a full breadth of products. A lot of times we'll direct those manufacturers to our distributors, and the distributors will pick them up, which kind of benefits the manufacturer and also benefits the distributor too. And on our site, the distributors are pretty high volume, so they're getting a lot of eyeballs on their site from the retailers that are buying from the distributors.
Okay. I have a request I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to put you on the spot, but will you be able to make, is it okay if we give out this PowerPoint presentation to anybody who wants a copy?
Yeah, sure, and there's nothing proprietary in there.
Okay, good. So we will post that on our website along with the replay, okay? All right, here's another question. Pet treats. Not a day goes by without seeing another all-natural pet treat. What would you tell someone looking to launch another pet treat?
It's tough because you're right. I mean, there's tons of, or whoever asked the question is right. There are tons of pet treats on the market, and I see a lot. And I don't know if this is a baked treat or a packaged treat. And there's kind of by baked I mean more of a decorated, handmade treat versus a packaged treat. So I don't know what area they're going for, but let's go to the baked, like more homemade treats. I see a lot of companies that are fairly successful that start with local and regional distribution of their product, and that can grow from there. They might be selling in 2 or 3 states, and they might grow, and they sell all over the Southeast, and then maybe all over the East Coast. And so I've seen growth that way. With a packaged product, it's a little bit more difficult. I think the packaging is key, and there's more competition in that regard. But yeah, I mean that's one of the first things I mentioned when we started this presentation was the pet industry is a very desirable industry to be in, and for that reason there's a lot of competition almost in every category, but certainly treats. I mean, yeah, it's real tough. I mean, but you're coming up with something unique, and it's tough. I mean, if you're going the package route, I would almost spend as much money on packaging and marketing as the treat itself. And of course, the treat itself has to be good and nutritious and delicious and all natural and organic, etc. But that's one of the most oversaturated categories in our industry, if you ask me.
Right. I mean, we say what's the good thing about that is that it's a low barrier to entry. What's the bad thing about that? It's a low barrier to entry.
Yeah. But that's why I mentioned the baked treats, which has a real low barrier of entry, because you can basically bake these in maybe your own house, but certainly in a commercial kitchen. If you're maybe not doing it as a full-time job, but if you start out delivering to local, or not even delivering, but selling to local stores, I mean you can get pretty good growth that way. The local stores, I think they like buying from bakery treat manufacturers in their area, if the product's comparable. When Gene and I were talking before, we going to the Outer Banks this weekend, and there's one store down there that has a little doggy bakery, and I'm trying to think of their name, but there's another retailer, and that retailer buys from basically their competitor, so they can get a local treat. I mean, there's advantages to having a really fresh product, and also to helping out someone else in your community. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and you can make that pitch if you are a local bakery, you can certainly make that pitch. And the other thing is, I mean, if you're a local bakery, you're certainly not limited to pet stores. I mean, you go to any natural foods retailer or any grocery store in your area, and you can make it. As long as your packaging is decent and your product's good, you can make a pretty good argument why they should carry your product. Every local business likes to support local businesses. Yep. So I think your chance to grow regionally are pretty good.
You had mentioned this, and this might be a great topic for the Pet Business Opportunity website, which we like to always present different resources about how to find a contract manufacturer. Is there like a good centralized place to find them? Because I know they don't necessarily have to specialize in pet products, but
yeah, they don't. I mean, Google's probably the best, but Google's probably gonna. There's something called the Thomas Register. You're probably familiar with that, but the Thomas Register used to be like these big, like phone book volumes that they would put out every 2 or 3 years. But now it's all online. But if you Google, if you add contract manufacturing and probably what type of product it is, more than likely a lot of your results are going to be through. And I don't know if it's Thomas.net, but it's the Thomas Register. But do
you know any firsthand that you personally know of or recommend, or no? Maybe we could follow.
Not really, but I do know. I mean, some of the manufacturers that we represent, contract manufacture for other companies. Like I know Mirage, and we don't represent Mirage Pet Products right now, but Mirage Pet Products, I know they make collars for basically some of their competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So there is opportunities that way. I mean, and it's tough. I mean, the best way to find out might be to go to a trade show and ask your competitors, but they may not want to give up their information.
Right. Okay.
Also, I mean, Gina, talking about business ideas, I thought a good idea, which you might want to look into, would be a liaison for manufacturing overseas. So someone who could line up contract packaging for you in China. I thought that would be a good business. There's a lot of small entrepreneurs that we come up with a good design, but they don't want to. They may get ripped off by someone in China, or they certainly don't want to. They may not want to fly over to China to do the quality testing or to find the right manufacturer for the product. But if there was like a broker, and there might be a broker for this, but I'm talking like someone specialized.
I actually have a friend. He's a broker. That's exactly what he does. He goes to China and he just hooks up American companies who manufacture in China. Although with their bad reputation with all the stuff with the the chicken strips and the treats. I mean, I think never recommend doing any kind of food-related thing in China. I wouldn't.
I agree with you.
Not ever. But anyway, that's my own thing. Okay, last question, at least for me, unless anybody else has one, is, and this has come up, and this is probably one of the most popular things on our website, is questions related to drop shipping. I know that you guys don't do drop shipping. Is there?
Well, no, we sort of do. I mean, we don't. I mean, Wholesale Pet doesn't do the actual shipping. Okay, so we talked earlier about barriers to entry and drop shipping as far as getting into a pet business in general. Opening a website where you drop ship the merchandise from, that's probably the lowest barrier to entry in our industry, and more people are doing it. And I don't think there is a really, or at least to my knowledge, and Gene, you might know, I don't think there's a really good company out there that supports. I mean, Wholesale Pet, we do a fairly good job, but I'll tell you our limitations. I don't know of a good warehouse facility that's supporting drop ships, and by that I mean where you can go to one facility and they basically they integrate with your website, and they're basically the fulfillment center for your website. They might exist.
We do have a few listed. They don't necessarily integrate with your website, but they will drop ship. Pet supplies. There's a couple in New Jersey that do it. What's the big one in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I know you're talking about that. It says initials in the name, but I can't think of it right now.
BCI?
BCI, yeah.
Bradley
no,
Caldwell.
That's Bradley Caldwell. No, there's another one that does it.
But Bradley Caldwell is huge, and they do drop shipping, right? They have like tens of thousands of products.
Yeah, but I think that, sorry, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, and really the drop shippers that we see try to go more on the boutique realm. And we do a pretty good job of servicing them, but there's no one's going to carry all the boutique products and make it real conducive to drop shipping.
Exactly. That's what makes you unique. That's why,
Yeah. And so with Wholesale Pet, we represent about, 300 manufacturers and then a handful of distributors, and about 100 of those manufacturers and most of the distributors drop ship. And it works pretty well, and really the drop ship numbers on our site have grown a lot. I think the main drawback for us is each manufacturer has different terms on our website because
I would think it's a logistical nightmare for you.
Well, for us, it's not that easy. I mean, it's not much of a logistical nightmare for us because all we're doing is moving data.
Okay.
For the people doing the fulfillment, it's a little bit more of a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that what most manufacturers say is, or even the distributors, is it's not a real profit center for us. I mean, they like helping the customers.
Right.
I mean, once you get into drop shipping, and if you're drop shipping a pet toy that costs $10, I mean, even if the wholesale is $10, the shipping on that might be $7. So if the retail price is $20, and the buyer, the store that's selling it, the drop shipper already has $17 invested in the product, they're not making much of a margin.
Oh yeah, we've written extensively about this, about that sometimes drop shipping can be a trap because of the shipping, exactly. Let's say you carried 5 different products that were all drop shipped by different drop shippers, and then...
Yeah, and one of the biggest challenges we have on our site is the manufacturer or distributor or vendor on our site, that they determine the price isn't given to the drop shipper at the time the order's placed, because most manufacturers on our site are charging actual freight, which is fair. I mean, it's the lowest price they're going to charge them, but they don't know there's going to be a $7 freight charge on that item. I mean, except from experience, and a lot of people learn it from experience.
And by then it's too late. Okay, I got another question here for you from Jenny. She wants to know, if someone is doing just local manufacturing of a pet product, do you recommend the UPC code on the packaging? And if so, how would you go about doing that?
Yes, I would recommend doing the UPC. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're happy with just doing local and your stores aren't requesting it, you can get away with not doing it. I don't know the exact procedure. You contact the Universal Product Council, and they issue you a UPC number, and the first numbers, I think 6 numbers in there are kind of your manufacturer number, and then you kind of apply the other numbers to each individual product. I think the cost is very much in that. So if your customers are asking
probably
for
like an ISBN number for a book, right?
It's very similar to the ISBN number for a book.
Which I know are very inexpensive.
But I'd say it depends on whether as you grow and get into larger retailers, that's when that's going to be required.
Right.
I'll kind of bring up a question because someone asked about treats and someone asked about growing their distribution. Because when I had a pet product manufacturing company and all the treat companies I deal with, this question comes up a lot. But that is licensing to sell a pet treat or pet food in every state, which is kind of a nightmare. And again, I guess you're familiar with this, but with each state, and not every state, but probably 40 of the 50 states require that you register pet products with their Department of Agriculture, and all of them have different forms, and all of them have different fee schedules. So some of them might charge you, a $20 fee per year, and some of them it's $50 per product. So it's all kind of across the board, and it's not. You're basically just licensing. There's not like it's much easier from a regulation standpoint to sell a human product, a human food product in the United States than it is to sell a pet product, just with this sort of the logistics of this licensing.
Okay.
If you are a pet product manufacturer that's listening, my advice would be to kind of don't. It would almost be a full-time job to take care of all those registrations, or a full-time job for a couple months to take care of all those registrations. But as you achieve distribution into the different states, that's when I would do the registration.
But this applies mainly to food, to edibles, you're saying?
Edibles. It's only this doesn't apply to anything unless it's a treat,
right.
unless it's consumable products. So just treats and foods. But if you do, I mean, if you're getting picked up by PetSmart, they're going to require
of course.
that your product's registered
without a UPC code. Sure.
Yeah.
Emily here, I just commented. She said it's super duper easy to obtain. You can Google a company that does it, and they usually charge less than $50. So it seems like it's money and time well spent doing the UPC code.
Yeah, and more and more so the independent retailers are using UPCs. I mean, most point-of-sale systems are working off UPCs, so it's a good thing.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that just about wraps it up. I think we're almost out of time. So if anybody had any last questions, otherwise I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. As our gift to all the attendees, we want to offer you this free copy of our ebook, Everything You Need to Know About Search Engine Optimization in Plain English. You know that we're very big on SEO, on getting website traffic to your products and services. So again, thank you for joining us, and please watch for our next series of webinars, and you can always find it on our website at petbusinessopportunity.com. Don't forget the hyphens, and thank you very much for joining us.
Great. Thanks, Gene.
You're welcome.